Okay, so let's get started. So first of all, thanks everyone for joining. My name is Joel, and I am Chief Solution Architect here at PractiTest. And I wanted to thank you for joining us today on this session around PractiTest and what we've been adding into the system for the last, let's say, 3 months, 4 months, something like that. I mostly went over the stuff that seemed interesting and added here so that we can review that. The idea of these sessions, we call them sometimes PT Labs or What's New, is just to make sure that we can review with everyone who's interested the stuff that we have been adding so that everyone is up to speed and up to date with the functionality that we have in here. And if you have any questions, hopefully we will be able to answer them. You have both the chat and the Q&A that you can use if you want to ask any questions. We're also recording this and we can share it after the session, but mostly it's going to be an overview, kind of an advanced demo on the stuff that we have been adding lately. Okay, so let's get started. For those of you who don't know me, and I'm guessing that it's most of you at this point, so I am a tester. My profession and my vocation is that of testing. I've been a tester for over 23 years now, and I've done every single role that you can think of from testing, including interning testing while in college, and junior tester, senior tester, and manager, and director, and VP. Consultant as well. I tend to speak in some testing conferences. Hopefully we're still doing them mostly online, but hopefully we're going to start doing them live on the second half of this year. And within PractiTest, I'm basically serving as the Chief Solution Architect, working on trying to put together the best solution for your needs. In order to do that, I get to talk with many organizations and customers of PractiTest and leads to understand what's needed, and we try to put this together based on your feedback and your requests. I also handle a couple of other projects, and actually I'm going to be talking about them, so we can actually go into them. And these are PractiTest-related projects, but that also are on the testing realm. So one of them, it's actually a project that I really, really like, and it's called the Online Test Conf. Online Test Conf, if you don't know about this, it's basically an online conference, only that we have been doing them online for the last 5 years. We do them twice a year, so these are 10th. And they're pretty good conferences, only because we do try to bring a lot of the leading figures on the testing world. And we try also to mix them together with new voices. And it's recommended, obviously, and it's 100% for free. So if you go to onlinetestconf.com, you can sign up. Our next one is next month, actually, about a little bit less than a month from now. Okay, we're pretty excited about it. Another project that we also do with the sponsorship of PractiTest is the State of Testing report. This is our 8th State of Testing, I think. And the State of Testing is as the name implies, it's a review of what's going on in the testing world. And we put together a questionnaire that goes out to hundreds of testers, and we review the answers. And because we have been running this report for a while now, then we can actually basically look at trends and understand what's going on and where are we headed. And usually what we do after releasing the State of Testing, you can download the report right now, is we have a panel of people talking about it. So the next one is actually at the end of the month. And I managed to get some pretty interesting testing figures from the US, from Europe, and we're going to be talking about the trends that we have in there. So also another event. If you want to go ahead and subscribe for that, sign up for that, then that's cool. And you can also obviously download the State of Testing report from the QA blog site. And if you don't know where to download from, then let me know and I'll send you the link to that. Now, let's talk a little bit about PractiTest. And before we jump into the functionality that I want to review, I want to take a step back and talk with you. The fact that you're here means that you care about what we're doing within the organization and the product. And I want to make sure that we can also share with you also the vision that we have for the product and the changes that have been happening. There are many test management solutions out there. There are many good test management solutions out there. But I think that one of the things that we're trying to do differently in PractiTest today, we're trying to bridge all of the different sources of testing and quality information that are out there. And this is something that we don't see quite a lot, and we believe that there's a very big need for that. So everyone will manage your manual scripted tests that you have in there. Many will actually manage also your exploratory testing. But we also want to encompass within PractiTest all of your automation information that you have in there. And automation is not only your functional automation, it's not only your Selenium or Ranorex or whatever you have in there, it's also the API level information that you might be working with Robot Framework or Postman or something like that, but it also expands all the way to the unit test information that is being run by your development. And so we're trying to provide different solutions for all of these different needs. In addition to that, we know that we need to bring all the information that is coming from bug tracking systems like Jira or Azure DevOps or GitLab and stuff like that, pass information along to places like Slack or Teams, and basically serve as the hub of information from all your testing data in order to generate good visibility into what is in there. So our target, our objective is to be that hub of information. We believe that we're doing a good job right now, but we want to expand that job in the future. So a lot of what you're going to be seeing today and also in the coming months and the coming years is how can we encompass more of that testing information and provide better visibility and better transparency into what's going on in your process, in your product, in your projects all the time. But that is enough from a high level. Today, I want to talk about a number of features that we released the last couple of months. And I want to show them to you to make sure that everyone's up to date with what we've been doing. I want to talk about ground level functionality, updates that we're doing to our XBot beta. And I will talk about the XBot again a little bit. Some pretty cool feature that some of you were asking for, and we finally released it. That is the ability to assign groups or assign stuff to groups. Improvements to our Jira integration. I think it's integration that most of our users are actually working with right now. Embedding images, and a little bit about the landing page. And hopefully it'll be about 35, 40 minutes, and there will be time for questions at the end. Now, before we start talking about ground level functionality, I think that it's important to understand how the artifacts within PractiTest relate to one another, how the different entities relate to one another. And many of you might already know this, but for those of you who don't, then this is an important thing to understand fully into what we're doing here. So you might not be working with everything. You might not be working with requirements or user stories. You might not be working with issues, but it's important to understand the relationship between that. So I will spend a minute, I promise, not more than that. Obviously, the theoretical process will start with requirements. And in this case, or user stories is the same. These are requirements module. That these requirements will be linked to multiple test cases within our test library, to multiple tests, using the PractiTest lingo for that. These are many-to-many relationship. Okay, so one requirement might be linked to multiple test cases. One test might be linked to multiple requirements. We separate between our repository test library and our execution modules, where we have test sets, instances, and runs. We call that module test sets and runs, as you obviously know. And within that, every one of the tests on the library will be represented as instances. So obviously, every test will have multiple instances. It might be on the same test set. It might be on multiple test sets. But these are independent. And the idea is to encourage reusability. Now, up to now, most of that reporting capabilities were given on the instance level. Whenever I was running my test cases, my instances, most of the information was set up on the level of the instance. The custom fields were there, the reports were there. And we believe that that model was very useful and simple when you're working with manual test cases. But the moment that we started seeing a surge in the use of automation within PractiTest, then we realized that it makes more sense to expand the flexibility that we had in instances into our runs. And the logic is simple, meaning if I have a project where I have a test set with some instances, then when I'm running that test set manually, I will run each one of those instances usually once, maybe twice, in some cases 3 times, if I need to do a lot of bug verifications and reruns for that. Whereas when we're working with automation, and it's enough that you have nightly builds, and you have a 2-week sprint, So you will end up having anywhere between 10 and 14 different runs for that test set, given that it's only on that 2-week sprint. So it's a different order of magnitude. And so we need to provide better visibility into what's happening within the runs once we start being more serious about our support to automation. And obviously, throughout the process, you will be reporting issues. So when we talk about adding more flexibility and functionality around the runs, we mean that it's around how do we support automation better, but not only, meaning it also helps for your manual test cases. But to tell the truth, if we're only talking about manual test cases, I guess that having that visibility of the instances would be enough. Now, when we started talking about automation with more and more customers, they started requesting, you guys started requesting a lot of more information on the runs, and this is what we provided since the beginning of the year. So when we look into the additions that we have been adding to the run level functionality, I can separate this into 3 main points, 4 main points. The first one is the addition of fields on the level of the runs in order to capture information that is specific to my run. Maybe the build that I was working, the environment that I was using, all that stuff that will be important when I try to analyze what's going on my execution. Once I have that information in there, obviously we don't manage information for the sake of information. We do it for the sake of providing visibility. And so we added a lot of graphs and reports into that. And lastly, what we added is also the ability of manipulating that information on the fields that we have for the runs via our REST API. Now, because we don't want to see only slides in here, so let's actually move and see how that looks in the real world. So I'm going to be working on this project in here. And what we want to start working with is, first of all, we want to show the information or the options that we're providing right now on the level of the runs. Now, when we talk about run level information, what we mean is, if I go to any one of my test sets in here, it's the ability to define information not only on the level of my instances here, but if I go, let's go actually to one that has multiple instances, multiple runs in here. I think that this one, I do. So if I come, let's go to this one here. If I come here, then I can see that in addition to the information that I see, let's go back here. In addition to the information that I can see on the level of my test set, for example, how many runs I have, what's the latest status, if there are linked issues in here, I can also see information on the level of my runs. For example, here we are on this instance, test number 2, invalid login, and we can see that it has been run a number of times. And for each time that I run it, I can capture information about it. In this case, the build that I was working on, maybe the testing environment where I was running my tests. Information that will be important if something happens to understand why this was happening. So we are able to capture this information in here. If you go over to one of your runs in here, you will see that this is the information that you have in here. We added the ability of adding fields to the level of the run. And if you want to modify these fields, you just press here on edit. You can modify them if you want. And once you're done, you can just save your changes in here. This is if you want to do it manually. Obviously, there's support for API level manipulations if you're going to be working with automation in here. Okay. Now, not only did we add the ability to see this on the run, it becomes very obvious that, yes, you can see it here. But we also want to show, for example, the last execution information. We want also to see it on the level of the test set. And so if you were keen-eyed, then you saw that we also have the ability of adding here the last run colon name of the field in here. Okay, so the last run environment, the last run build, it will appear in here. And this will be something that we can set up within our column. So every field that you see here that has last run and column, that basically it's a lookup to the last run stuff that we have in here. Obviously, we also have the last run status if we want to bring it, but it's already bringing up by the run status in here. So we have the ability of, first of all, adding this information, showing it on the instances, but this is not going to be enough. We also want to be able to generate new graphs and new reports around the same information. And so if we go over to our dashboards, then we also added the ability of generating graphs like the ones that we have for other entities on the level of the runs. And if I look into this graph in here, then you can see that it's a graph for my run level. It's not for my instance level. This is going to be happening directly within the runs. When I work in here, I have at this point 4 types of graphs. I can do a distribution table, a pie chart, bar chart, or execution progress graph. These are actually, we also added this not a long time ago, so you can also play with this as well. Now, the filter that we're going to be using is actually a complex filter. This is also something that we added right now, where on the one hand, the high-level information filter will be for your tested levels. Still, you will select number of test sets and bring the run information for those test sets. But we also added what we call a run level filter. What's the deal here? Let's say that I'm bringing information from, I don't know, the last, all of my tests that I have in here. I might want to do a sub-filter in here and bring only specific information. For example, bring stuff that it's only from my production environment or staging environment that I have in here. Okay, I have another attribute I want to do basically kind of a cross filter for that. You can also do it in there. That's if you want to show a segment of the information that you have under the tested filter. And other than that, then you also have the ability of working with fields from the level of the run. This is just as you had with the instances. Okay, so this is cool. And again, it will give you quite a lot of visibility into what you have in there. What type of visibility? Most of the things that we're seeing around this do revolve around automation. For example, this is an example where I might have my nightly build, the same information that we saw before. And so we can benchmark the results of different builds that we had. So, oh, in this one, everything passed. Here we had one blocked and a couple of no runs. Here everything passed. And here we have a couple of failed instances. So you're able to do stuff like this. Or again, basically benchmarking that you can do as pie charts, bar charts. You also have an execution progress graph that might be very useful for that. Okay, but this is with regards to run level information. In addition to that, we also added reports. And if we go here to our report center, then, for example, we can generate a pretty cool report, for example, for your nightly builds in here. In this case, when you generate a new report, then notice that you have it also for your runs here. You have your tabular reports, you have your tabular aggregated. I personally really like the tabular aggregated report and the information that we can actually capture for that. And just to give you an example of a tabular aggregated report that you can do for your run levels, let me just here share my screen a little bit bigger so that you can see it. This report in here that I was playing with earlier today, it's an Excel report where I can see, let's say, each one of my test cases here, the test instances, and I can see their results over a number of builds that I was working with. So it can be builds, it can be environments, it can be devices that you're testing. But this tabular aggregated report, it's really one of my favorite reports in the sense that I can do cross-test set or cross-run functionality and information for my for the execution of my runs. And it's really a very valuable report. I very recommend that you should play with that. Okay, let's go back over to this. So this is with regards to run level functionality. Again, we want to come here. Sorry, wrong button. It's going to be about the ability of capturing fields, generating graphs, reports, and again, with regards to the API, if you're going to be working with automation, then you can initialize or even modify that information using the API from a regular API that you have in there. Now, let's move along to other things that we added in there. And still around the topic of automation, then I want to talk about some additional improvements that we keep adding to the XBot too. And as a reminder, our XBot is the ability of using PractiTest as an execution engine. Basically, you can give us links to your execution scripts, and we can run them on your execution machines and capture the results. So the reason that it's in beta is because we're still adding a lot of functionality in it. Not that it's not supported. It's very stable. We have a number of customers who are working with that and giving us great feedback and results. But we keep adding functionality, so we don't feel comfortable enough still removing the beta tag to that. But you should go ahead and work with it. So two of the things that we've added, one of them I will be showing today. The other one is actually going out later tonight. The one that we're actually working better right now is a lot better visibility into the queue and the run history that you have in the system. Thing that we're going to be adding later today, as we speak, is the ability to pass along parameters as part of the XBot URL that you're passing along, something that was already asked for 3 or 4 of our beta customers here. Now let's go over to our XBot so that we can actually see it working. And you know what? I'm going to share my whole screen again. So as a reminder, the way that the XBot works, these are my XBot test cases. And if I see it here, then when I have an XBot test, then you will see that within my automation information, I have the path for my script. This is where the script actually resides. It should be a script that can be run from CLI. Then I have the machine where my XBot should be running. And on purpose, it's a machine type because you might have multiple of these machine types like Mac or Windows or Android devices that you're working so that the XBot can optimize and run in multiple machines simultaneously. Then after we run these tests, we will instruct the XBot to go to this results path and bring a specific number of tests of files that were created since the XBot actually started running. And this is how the XBot will work. Once we have that information in here, then we can just go ahead and generate a test set like this one here. You can see that these are 3 XBot test cases. Each one of them is linked to another script that it will be running. And what we used to do up to now, it was basically you could just go ahead and click the run button in order to run your XBot. But what we added right now, we will be improving later, is the ability to schedule this, to run it later. Right now, it's only a one-time. So you can just run it later, for example, at one time. But we will be able to schedule it and say, OK, go ahead and run every night at midnight or something like that. In this case, let's say that I want to go ahead and set this up to run today, let's say at 9:30 p.m. OK, this is going to be local time from the person basically pressing the save button. So I do here done, and it's going to tell me, OK, it's going to be scheduled to run at 29:30 today's date, and I save my changes. So in theory, at least, when 9:30 comes, the XBot or PractiTest will send these 3 test cases over to the XBot queue, and it will go ahead and run these test cases. But I just mentioned the XBot queue. What is the XBot queue? If we go in here, we added a new tab to your tests and runs, and maybe some of you already noticed it. If I press here, then I can see, first of all, the current queue that I have in here. What do we mean by queue? Well, the XBot doesn't know exactly when it's going to start running the test cases. It can add them to a queue, and as the test case actually proceed and continue running, then it will run one, then the other, then the other. So we have here the queue, and we will be able to see it. What we see in this case right now is our schedule. So if you remember, we schedule my test set smoke test to start running at 9:30 p.m. today. The scenario that we're covering here is what happens if, for some reason or for any reason, I want to start running this test right now. I don't want to wait for 9:30 for it. So what we have here is the ability to move my test set, including all the test cases within that test set, into my queue. Let's just close this, sorry. So when I press here to move my test into the queue, it will ask me this question, whether I want to move the scheduled run or if I just want to run it now and keep the schedule to be run 9:30 today. So if, let's say, these are recurrent events, so I want to run it every night, I might want still to run it tonight, but I want also to run it now, so I can press this one here. But in my case, I just want to run my test cases before the scheduled time for any reason, so I just press here on run. When I press on run, then first what will happen is that it will go out of my queue. It went out of my queue. And it actually went in here. And you can see how now my 2 test cases are currently on the queue. One of them is running, is the one that is actually running my Selenium here, and you can see that it's in status running. And if I go here, then I can see the instance that is running currently, and I can see how the test is running. I can see the telemetry that is being captured as the test actually runs. Okay, if I come here, once again, I will be able to see my queue and all the test cases that are within my queue. In this case, they already run. So I don't see them in my queue any longer. Wait, let's just minimize this for a second. Oh, no, it's back here, sorry. So in here, I can see that my queue right now is empty. I have nothing in here. I still have it scheduled as I asked before. And what we also added here is the ability to see the history of all your XBot test cases that you already run. Okay, so also the history is going to be kept in here. So this is what we added right now on the XBot. Expect to get more functionality around the XBot. Like I said, the ability to have recurrent execution and the ability to do a little bit more stuff within the system as well. So this is with regard to the XBot functionality. Now, moving forwards, and let's actually share right now. I think that we can go and start sharing only the browser. The next piece of functionality that we added is something that is relatively simple, but I think it's very, very handy, especially on organizations where you're working with larger teams, and within those larger teams, you want to assign things not to a specific team member, but maybe to a specific, to a general team in the organization. We call this assign to group. The assign to group functionality will allow you to assign any entity either to a person or to a group of people. And when you assign it to a group of people, then first of all, everyone in that group will get notification via email, just as the individual would get. And you're also able to filter based on groups. Okay, so it's straightforward, but really, really neat. So if I come here, if you notice in here, for example, I can assign my entities either to people or, as I have done here, to groups. When you press here, then you will see that you have either the specific individuals or group and the name of the group. Now, which are the groups that we see here? These are the same groups that you have within your users and groups functionality. Okay, so if I want to start working with a group here for a specific team, then it makes sense to generate the same group under the users and groups, to just create a group in here that will include the people that you want from here. Now, something to remember is that any person within your project can be part of multiple groups. There is no limit. So in that sense, I can have the same person, for example, Anna, being part of 3 or 4 different functional groups, so that it doesn't really matter how many people I'm going to be adding. They can still appear on multiple groups, and you will be able to work with all of them here. So when you're working within the entities themselves, then you will see also that you can assign them here, again, to different groups. And it's very, very, very simple. Now, a couple of things. First of all, within your settings, you are going to be able, if you don't want to allow to assign to groups, then you can basically remove what you have in here. I cannot remove it because I already have some groups that are assigned to. But also on my personal notifications, just as I have my email notifications, I also have the ability to either opt out of being updated whenever something is being assigned to my group. Okay, I do recommend to keep this open, and I do encourage you to work with the assign to groups, but notice that this is something that you can also basically work with and remove if it's something that you're not interested in your project. Moving forward with assign to group, then I want to talk about the additional things that we have been adding to our Jira integration. And again, I'm not even going to the presentation anymore. Maybe you can just see it here very quickly. So we have been busy with our Jira integration, basically answering a lot of the requests that you have been asking us about. The first of them, and I will be demoing this stuff in here, is the ability to work both within PractiTest's and or Jira within the same project. And here's for people who were telling us, hey, I know that once we set up the integration with Jira, I need to report my bugs over to Jira, but I also want the option of working within PractiTest and then passing that information along to Jira if I want to. So we are supporting that right now. Another thing that was requested quite a lot is how can we bring more information, more fields from Jira into PractiTest? And then how can we modify these fields from within PractiTest? These are the things that we've added right now. And the one that was added lately was the ability to work with better panels with more information within Jira. So let's actually go ahead and see how this looks in PractiTest and in Jira as well. So first of all, one of the things that you need to notice is that even though my project here, and how do I know if my project is linked to Jira? Well, I have a couple of options. First of all, if when I go here to my new dropdown, I see sync any issue from Jira or sync any requirement from Jira, obviously I'm working within Jira. But also if you're familiar with PractiTest, then you know that if I'm running a test in here, and when I press fail an issue, if I'm working with Jira, it will basically prompt me here to send the bug into Jira. So this is obviously a Jira linked project. But something that we didn't support before and we're supporting right now is even when I'm working within a Jira supported project, I can still create bugs within PractiTest. Now the new issue is enabled. And I can just report a bug as I would do to any bug in PractiTest as I would do with a non-integrated project. For example, this is my new bug. And here is my description. And again, I can add here information that I want in here, anything that I want to do here. Now, it's not only about allowing to work both with Jira and PractiTest, but the flow that we want to support is what happens if you start by reporting your bugs in PractiTest, and at some point in time, maybe your triage, maybe your team will say, hey, you know what? This is a bug that we want also to send to Jira as well. We want it to be in Jira. So what we have in here is the ability of, once we save it, under my actions, I have the ability of creating a parallel issue in Jira or linking this issue to Jira. When I press here the create issue, what will happen is PractiTest will try to create the bug in Jira just as we do within the run when we do fail an issue, which means we will try to take the information from the name, from the description, and try to create a Jira bug from that. Because it's the same mechanism that we have within our fail an issue, then it's going to be the same thing as we had before. You can select on what project and under what type of ticket you want to do it. You can modify the name of the bug you have in here. Let's call it bug from PT. You can modify the description. And something I will talk later on, you can also send more information into Jira here. In this case, again, fields that I might want to have mapped in here. And I will talk about the mapping in a second. But once I'm done, I can just go ahead and create the issue in Jira. And just as it happened when you're working with fail an issue, this bug now has been linked to Jira. So we just created this new bug in Jira here, where you see bug from PT and the description as it appears in here. And if we go back into PractiTest, then let's refresh the screen. You will see that now it's not issue what it was 34 is my Jira ID bug from PT, and it will behave on the same way that a Jira bug would. Okay, so it's both the ability to work with PractiTest if you want in parallel to Jira, but also the ability of sending bugs into Jira once you have worked within PractiTest for a while. And this is the new functionality that we have in here. Now, the other things that we've added into Jira is, as you noticed, I have the ability of, when I'm creating a new bug within PractiTest, I have the ability of basically sending more information into Jira. It used to be supported only for mandatory fields. If there was a mandatory field in Jira, let's create a new run in here, for example. Oh, sorry, this one has parameters. I forgot about that. Username Joel, password bypass. And when we run it, then we will see here when I press fail an issue, then I have the ability of populating more information into Jira. Now, this is not only for mandatory fields as it was. Now I have the ability of any list field or any text field in Jira. I can prompt users in PractiTest to basically report the information from here. How does it work? Let's actually go for a second over to our settings, because we did a lot of modifications to our Jira integration settings. If we go over to our Jira integration settings in here, again, within integrations, project issue integration settings, and over to Jira, then first of all, in order to allow to work as we're working here with bugs within PractiTest, sorry for that, within PractiTest or Jira, then you need to select this flag in here. What we added also is the ability to manipulate or to map additional fields into PractiTest here. Okay, so as you can see here, we have the ability of adding more fields that we will want to synchronize with Jira. For example, in this project, I have two fields in Jira. The priority field that is coming from Jira, if we look in here, is going to be my priority field that I have in here. And I also have my testing environment field also from Jira. You can see it as this field that we have in here. So we can map any of these list fields or text fields to Jira through PractiTest. First of all, whenever I bring a new field, for example, let's say that I want to bring my my reporter field, I can select here to place it on the fail an issue. So I can basically add here, whenever my user is going to be sending the bug, I can basically send also this field for the reporting here. In addition to sending it on the fail and issue model box that you're seeing, you can also map it, basically start displaying it within PractiTest. You can either display it on the description, or you can map it to an existing field in PractiTest as well. So for example, in here, you need to add a field in PractiTest. Let's put it in the description. You need to add a field in practice and just map it over there. And it can be synchronized either to your issues and or to your requirements. Let's see how this actually looks in action. We have here two fields, my priority and my testing environment. Priority should appear on my issues and requirements, testing environment only on my issues. So if I go over to my issues in here, let's go to a Jira related issue, you can see here that we have our Jira priority and an environment in here. And if, let's close this. If I open my Jira bug in here, then you will see that this bug has our environment testing and priority major in here, just as you see here. Now, the other thing that we added in PractiTest, and it's actually pretty cool, is the ability to modify these fields in PractiTest and populate those changes into Jira. So if I press here on Edit Jira Fields, let's say that we're going to be modifying the testing environment to production and the Jira priority to critical. We update in Jira now. And if we go over to our, remember, take a look in here. Let's just refresh this bug. You will see that we updated that information from within PractiTest as well. So right now we can modify the information for our specific fields. We want to allow later on also for the status. We want to allow for the comments, for the description, for the names as well. So you will be able basically in the future to work in both systems in parallel, okay, and be able to manipulate all of the systems in parallel for all the stuff that you have in here. The last thing that we added into Jira, it's the ability to, and I didn't show it on my requirements, so let's go over to our requirements, and let's bring some requirements from within Jira. Let's actually bring it using a filter. Okay, and we brought these requirements in here. And as you can see here as well, then we have this information. For the requirements, we only brought one of the fields in here. Now, the last thing that we added to Jira, it was added a couple of weeks ago, is improvements to the panels that we have in Jira. And you can basically see that in here. If you remember the old panels used to have only like one line and the status of the testing here. So we want to provide more information if we can. So what we're bringing, first of all, is more information about the run date, the tester who ran it, better traceability information as well. But not only that, if you notice here, you can also expand here the info. And for example, here, I can see the steps that are within my test case. So green steps are going to be steps that passed. Red steps is the step that failed. You have black steps are steps that haven't been run. And the idea is to provide more information on the run itself to the developer or to the person who's actually seeing the bugs that you have in here. If we go over to a, one second, if we go over to a requirement that we have in here, then it will be a little bit different. Let's go over to 2. Oh, one sec. Oh, let's actually add here something to our traceability. Then we save it in here. Then once again in here, we can basically see, sorry, for some reason someone's calling. We can actually see here as practice requirements, the test cases that are linked to this with the steps within my test case. So if I have a requirement linked to multiple test cases, then you will be able to see also the flow within the test cases in here. So we're showing more and more information in Jira also about the traceability within PractiTest. And this is also very valuable, at least based on the feedback that we're getting from customers. Now, moving along with the additional functionality in outside of Jira, then I want to talk right now, let's say, about images into PractiTest. And this is interesting because this was maybe the most requested feature on user voice on our customer forum for some time, but it was a little bit of a, let's say, technological challenge to do it as we were doing it right now. But we took that challenge and we improved it. And what we're talking about, something relatively simple. If I have here any entity and I have here any description field, we want to support the ability of dragging and dropping just files in here. Okay, so maybe I want to bring this image in here and I just want to drop it into the system. Obviously, it's where the cursor resides, so let's put it in here. Sorry, in here. Oh, come on. At this point, what you notice is that two things happen. We have here a shortcut. This is Markdown, so it's not showing the image right now. It's showing a link to the image, and the image was automatically added here to our attachments. But what's important is that you can always see here the image as a thumbnail, as you have it in here. By the way, if you want to see it bigger than the thumbnail, then you can just simply remove what you have in here, and it will be shown. Oh, yeah, sorry, on real time, as it was shown in here. So you can now drag and drop any images that you have over to your description fields, and this is supported both on descriptions here as well as on your steps. So you can also drag and drop here any information that you have into that. Now, obviously, you were able to drag it also here, but we also wanted to put in there. Now, in addition to that, and I like dragging and dropping, a lot of people also requested us to be able to paste information in here. So if I open an image, let's open this image in here in new tab. And let's say that I'm using, let's just go ahead and capture this part of the screen. So right now it's on my tray. I can come here to any one of my fields and just do Control V. Oh, sorry. Sorry, it needs to be here. So once we have it on our tray, 1 second. We need to copy this. Oh, come on. Let me just select something here outside the image. And once we copy, sorry for that, I don't have it at this point. But then you should be able to just paste it in here. And again, copy and paste the information directly from the screen. So that is also supported at this point. Okay, and again, you have it in any of the description fields that you have in there. And the final point that I wanted to talk about on the stuff that we have been added on the last couple of months is actually our landing page. And this is something that we added based on the feedback from multiple users. And we see some people that are starting to use that, but some customers who are not. And they're asking us, actually, why did we add that? And I'm talking here about this landing page that we added in here. And I guess that some people are just not realizing the functionality that was added in here. And let me explain it in 2 seconds, just so that people understand exactly what we assume and what we want people to do with this section. So the first thing that you see here is the project section. If your account has many projects, over 5, 6, maybe 20, 30 projects, then what we want to show here are the last projects that were accessed either by you or by other people in your team, so that you can go ahead and access them faster. If you want to see all the projects in your account, just press here and you will see again all the different projects. Once I'm here, it's very easy. Just click once. You will see that you can go to any of the modules and it will take you directly into any of the modules that you have in there. Okay, so here it will take me directly into my issues module. If I want to return to the landing page, you just come here and you will be able to see it. In addition to that, we want to show you here the latest stuff that you have been working with. So if during your session you were working on this project, or well, right now I'm working only on one project, but any of the entities that you have in here, it's basically a shortcut to go back over to the stuff that you have been working with lately. But this is only the beginning of it. Another thing that we've added here is the ability to display on this grid cross-project dashboards. If you notice here, I can have here information from different projects if I want to, from this project here, from this project here, and from that project there. These are regular graphs. You can just click them, go to the information, and start displaying more and more information. And lastly here, we have basically information, tips, and tricks coming from PractiTest about new functionality, about new stuff that you can do. So all the time, we can actually update you with the information that you have in there. So if you want to modify this is basically what you can customize. You can press here on customize. If you are the account admin, then you will be taken to your account settings, where you can modify here the field, the graph that you want to bring. And also something else that we have in there is the ability to show text and embed text directly. Okay, so if you notice here, it's a message that we added so that everyone in my team can actually see this information in here. And you can add links, you can add images as well in here. So this is only the beginning. We have been getting a lot of feedback. We will continue improving this landing area, but it's really recommended that you can start, first of all, adding your information, adding your graphs, so that your team can enjoy everything that we have in there. So this is more or less what I wanted to present to you today as part of this session. We have about 10 minutes. If anyone has any additional questions, I will be more than happy to answer them. And again, as always, we're here to help if there's anything that we can do for you or anyone in your teams. So if there are any questions, just go ahead and just type them on the chat, and I'll be happy to answer them now. If not, no worries.